It's going to be a good one. Welcome to Frankly Hockey. I'm John Butchergrass. There is the hockey insider, Frank Saravalli, as we kick off another post-trade NHL finish to the regular season. Frank, you've been put through a lot here. Olympics, jumping on a plane, trade deadline, daylight savings time. That's kind of like a poke to the gut extra that we weren't counting on. But are you okay? Are you hydrated?
Hydrated, not really. I could definitely use a little more fluid, but yeah, let's just say that Saturday, in the aftermath of all this,
You hit a wall.
I slept until 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday, which I haven't done in, 15 years. And then got up, went to a late breakfast with my family, which is like on a Saturday. Is there anything better than like a really
awesome.
Good late breakfast? And then came home and went right back to sleep.
Love it. Listen to your body. Folks, that's our health tip of the day. Listen to your body. If you need a rest, get your rest. Frank got his rest, and he's ready to go for another Frankly Hockey 60 minutes, Monday through Friday, right here. Victory Plus, X, and YouTube. It's March 9th, 2026. Happy birthday, Radek Dvorak. He's 49. 1,260 games. Nice career. Brent Burns is 41 today, Frank. 987 consecutive games. 3 more to pass Keith Yandel. He can break Phil Kessel's NHL record, game 78 of next season. He's got 9 goals this year. He's a plus 30, playing 19-18 a night. I guess my question to you is, what team might that be on? Would Colorado bring him back? They go on to win the Stanley Cup, run it back one more year, bring back Brent, let him break the record? Or do you go back to San Jose, sign a 1-year deal with the young up-and-coming Sharks, maybe finish your career there, break the record? That'd be a great kind of thing to kind of have a little juice for San Jose next year.
Hadn't even thought about San Jose, and the fact that they only have 2 defensemen under contract for next season means, hello, there's room here. You could definitely squeeze them in as a 6-7, and I just did the 6-7 thing. But what Brent Burns is the answer to a trivia question. Who is the only NHL player that played or is still playing that played before there was a salary cap?
Oh, and that's him?
He's 2003-04, before the cap existed. He's the last guy. The only guy. It's crazy.
And still no windshield, right?
No. He's not using a visor.
Yeah, him, Ryan O'Reilly, Ryan Reeves, and
Ryan O'Reilly got that eye injury though the other day, and
just a temp. Yeah. Okay, all right. Also, happy birthday, Phil Housley, 62, former Sabre, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, 27 years old today, and that brings us right into Franks and Beans. I have the beans, Frank has the Frank, and we have to start with the Sabres. Our top story in Franks and Beans before we get to the Frankly Hockey Rundown. Tampa still percentage points in front of Buffalo, but the Sabres have already banked 84 to Tampa's 82, Frank. Just the 9th game in NHL history, including playoffs, with 100-plus PIMs and 15-plus goals. I mean, that is hockey at its finest. 4 power play goals for the Sabres for the first time since 2018. Their 8th straight sellout, Frank, in Buffalo. Oh, by the way, Hagel fined $5,000 for jumping Rasmus Dahlin, who had a Gordie Howe hat trick. What a night. What an early evening. I was on the game from the beginning. Others jumped on the bandwagon. It's okay. There's plenty of room on the bandwagon. I'm here as a public service to promote the game and get people to these games that are awesome. But even when I began live tweeting that, as you said, which I don't do, but I felt this was special, and it turned out extra special.
I mean, I'm at my kid's game. I'm at the rink, and I keep getting these tweet notifications. I'm like, is Butchie live tweeting a Sabres game?
What's Butchie doing?
Yeah. What is he doing?
I don't do that.
Yeah, and so you were keeping me apprised, and then I would check Twitter, and I'd see like Brandon Hagel pummeling people. I think he was also punching Peyton Krebs after he was down on the ice. Didn't like to see that either. I mean, 8-7, like that reminds me of like 1987 hockey.
Clearly. Yeah, that was the height of hockey scoring, was the early 80s. People often say the 90s, but it's really the 80s. And then we also had fights. We still had enforcers. We had power forwards who fought a lot too. We talked about that last week with Secord and Neely and those guys in Talkett. It was just an amazing time. And last night really was truly a throwback to what it was like. Not every night in the NHL. You can't survive like that, but that was truly something special. Again, ninth game NHL history, just a ninth. 100 plus PIMs, 15 plus goals. Last time was April of '89, Penguins and Flyers. That was a playoff game. And then the last regular season instance, 1986, Canucks and North Stars, 100 plus PIMs, 15 plus goals. I mean, we might not see that again for 40 years, Frank.
Did both goalies stay in the entire game?
That's a great question. I believe they did. I don't think.
Was there a goalie
Yeah, because
change?
Johansson was the guy in net for Tampa, so he was taking a bullet no matter what.
Right, because Vasilevsky played the day before, right? In Toronto.
Yeah, and Ukko-Pekka-Luukkonen, like they had a lead. It was 4-1.
Yeah, both goalies. I'm looking at the box score. Both goalies were in the entire game, which means, that kind of reminds me of a game that I covered early in my career. It was the Brizgalov lost in the woods without the iPhone compass game, where I think he lost to Andre Pavlich and the Winnipeg Jets 9-8, if memory serves correctly, on home ice. And both goalies were in for all 17 goals or 16 goals.
Again, that's what's great about a game like that. We start thinking about other games. We compare them to other games. It was a Sunday evening, kind of early evening start, kind of weird. A lot of people, like you said, aren't around. I just happened, I golfed early in the day, took a nice nap, woke up. I'm all refreshed, ready to go. And man, I really, I was on the Bruins game and the Penguins. That was really cool because that's one of those things where both those teams, someone's going to feel really good with 2 points as they're trying to hang on. And then Columbus is watching like, Columbus fans, oh no, not a 3-point game. We don't want a 3-point game. I think in their mind, Frank, they want the Penguins just going like a 5-game losing streak. They're a division team. Crosby's out. That's their better chance than the Bruins, although both are just kind of fingernails on the Roadrunner cliff at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the standings here. What an electric potential second round matchup that would be, Sabres Lightning.
Yeah, and it's going to happen. One of them will win the division, probably Tampa, and Buffalo is not going to the wild card. So as long as Buffalo wins their first round match, we're going to have, I think, again, you never know, 1-8, that happens, the old school 1-8. But I think both Carolina and Tampa are safe, whoever gets the wild card for different reasons. But yeah, you're right. That would be just a phenomenal. Again, I would love a Buffalo-Detroit first round. And then again, I don't really care who wins per se, but a Tampa-Buffalo second round, because Buffalo, and we're going to talk about this in the rundown, one reason why I had them as my biggest winner. We're going to all post-trade deadline stuff for you. Biggest winner, biggest loser, most foresight, bang for the buck, a lot of cool stuff in the Frankly Hockey Rundown. So we'll save that for there. Just get a couple more Franks and Beans here. What a scoring race. I don't know who the MVP is, Frank. McDavid's 108. Big case. McKinnon 104, but got a lot of help. Kucherov 103. I don't know. It's going to go. I don't know, because McDavid's got help with Leon and Bouchard. McKinnon's got help with Natchez and Makar. Kucherov doesn't quite have as much help as they do. No. He's got 103.
I'm thinking right now, if I'm turning in my ballot today, it's Kucherov.
I think so too. It's like, the most valuable thing. And I still think if one player has a great year, I do think that trumps the true valuable definition per se, because MVPs are a part of a player's career resume. You want to kind of
Kucherov is 36 points clear of his next closest teammate. Jake Gensel has 67 points. Kucherov has 103.
And he's cooking with a kick. Like if he keeps us up 20 more games, he'll win the Art Ross. Like he's outpacing these guys their last 20. But again, McDavid's so good on the road. All right, so we have time for that. There are first NHL goals, Frank, and there are first NHL goals. Shout out Dominic Shine. He's 32 years old. He turns 33 in April. 4 years at Northern Michigan. 521 AHL games. He's got the flat nose to prove it. All in Grand Rapids. Just his 14th NHL game at the age of 32. Again, turns 33 in April. First NHL goal. So cool. Talk about loving the game. And a huge 2 points for the Red Wings. They needed that.
Yeah, they did. And wow, that's an incredible story. I mean, anyone who
It
does
is.
500 plus games in the minors, like that's love
Oh,
of the game more than anything else.
and those are tough winters in Grand Rapids too. He's not down in here in Estero playing for the Everblades in the ECHL. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, good job. Good job, Dominic. All right. Craig Button's our guest, by the way. The TSN analyst and director of scouting. Be fun to talk to him. Some more Franks and Beans. Penguins, second 3-goal comeback win of the season. Anthony Mantha, what a 1-year deal. $2 million deal before the season, and then $250K for every 10 games he plays this year. Not surprisingly, hasn't missed a game. Lots of incentive to play. 23 goals now, Frank. Career high is 25. He's a 31-year-old UFA. This will be the last chance he has to get a big contract in his career. I could see someone giving him 4 or 5 times 5.5, don't you? We saw the Sherwood deal. We saw the Conor Garland deal. I mean, Mantha at his best now might be a notch up just because he's big. He might go 25, 30. Maybe he's figured it out, or does he stay in this place in Pittsburgh where he's now finding this success and hang around? It's a tough decision for a player and agent to think about what's best for me, but this is my last chance to cash in big. And with a very dry free agent class this July, and if you believe this big man can maybe figure it out, he's going to get an offer.
He'll get an offer. And by the way, great pickup by the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Absolutely.
But I think the lack of consistency for Mantha game in and game out, not this year, but in his career.
Right.
I mean, we've got 570 games of sample size to know what to expect. And so I think that's been what's plagued Anthony Mantha. You want an interesting note from Friday's trade deadline? The Calgary Flames ended up acquiring Ryan Strome from the Anaheim Ducks, but the team that almost grabbed him was the Pittsburgh Penguins. That would have been another version of the same thing. One more year left on Strome's deal at $5 million. The Penguins have no cap space issues. Take on this player who used to be really productive, has had a tough year, started the year hurt, missed a bunch of time, was never really able to get into the Ducks lineup and be productive. Really well liked and respected guy. He ends up going to Calgary, scores in his Flames debut, but he could have been in Pittsburgh, and he could have been maybe one of those reclamation projects for next year that Pittsburgh ends up flipping at next year's trade deadline as a pending UFA.
Interesting. And they could use them right now, too, with obviously the Crosby injury. But again, they're scoring goals. That's why, when Malkin got suspended, I didn't think they would really miss him just because he's not scoring goals. They play with so much pace. They control the games most of the time. Obviously, Malkin maybe, passing and occasionally setting people up great. But I thought they'd be fine, and really almost a 4-point weekend for them. Like, Penguins seem to be okay. Bruins struggle on the road, 6-game losing streak, but they've won 12 in a row at home. So if they make the postseason, it's going to be on the power of their play at home, because right now they are almost a guaranteed L on the road. They can't quite figure it out. Stars, 88 points, second most in the league behind the Avalanche. 7th multi-goal comeback this year. They have a 12-game point streak, tied for 4th longest in franchise history. They are really finding their mojo here. But the Avs have won 5 in a row. Maybe they'll finish the year, Frank, like they started it. 3rd longest win streak of the season. Got a pair of 10-gamers earlier. McKinnon, 43 goals. Second most he's had in a season. He had 51 2 years ago, his MVP year. And Nazem Kadri back, an assist in game 1. A beautiful pass to McKinnon.
Yeah, so I really want to take some time to think about this and really deconstruct it and work back. But one of the things that, as an absolute loser, I woke up thinking about on Saturday, even as I'm sitting there eating breakfast with my family, I'm like, wonder what the Avs would have looked like had they just paid Nazem Kadri from the start and kept him. Like the chase that they went on and the assets that they spent since then to then pay him 80% of that anyway. I know there was still a flat cap environment, and like I really need to go back and deconstruct all the numbers and the math. And yeah, anyway, I have some thoughts on that, but let's save that for another show. That's why I didn't have them as one of the real winners today, because I need to think about whether or not this chase that they've been on to get him back actually made any sense.
Yeah, they were probably afraid of the McKinnon next contract, which then came after that, and weren't sure what that number would be. Obviously, they had Rantanen. Landeskog, still Landeskog.
There's a lot to reconstruct.
Right, yeah. A lot. All right. And a couple more before we hit the rundown. Connor McDavid, 2 assists. NHL leading 35th multi-point game this season. They depend on him so much. Extended road point streak is 18 for McDavid, the longest streak of his career. So again, as we talk about that fine line in the MVP, little things like this that can keep your team afloat, producing on the road, stuff like that. The minutia of the MVP vote, it might come down to stuff like that. And Evan Bouchard, assist streak to 7 games, disastrous October, but he's put himself kind of in the Norris conversation a bit. It's the longest streak of his career, 7 straight with an assist. And Podkolzin having a sneaky year. Career high 15. He's a big, strong guy. I remember last year asking Chris Knobloch, like, what's that guy do out there? Like, why does he play on the top line? Like, because he wasn't doing anything offensively. Plays kind of went to die when the puck went on his stick. But, again, he's coming back this year. He's got 15 goals, Frank. So he's one of those guys probably kind of figured out how I fit in the league and on this team.
Well, I think there's a number of things to his game. When you look at Edmonton and how they line up, Podkolzin does all the hard work back checking that enables Leon Draisaitl and the rest of that line to finish down low. Like, they're never really in trouble because Podkolzin has their back. So that stands out in a big way. And by the way, why'd you say it with some hesitation? You were like, Bouchard kind of in the Norris? Like, no, he is in the conversation.
I know, but you
don't like it, though. You think it feels dirty.
It does. I do feel a little naughty when I say that. Makar, Heiskanen got the overtime winner for Dallas, just an absolute rock. You win with guys like that. Obviously, Makar, even Dahlin now with his leadership and the captaincy and where they're going, he's got a lot to do with that. He's their best player on the team, and that team is cooking. He was really good last night. They were disastrous they need Logan. Well, let's just get right to the rundown because it's part of my argument on the Sabres. All right, here we go. Okay. Post-trade deadline stuff. Let's start. Item number 1 in the Frank Lee Hockey Rundown. Biggest winner at the deadline, Frank. What do you have?
All right, I'm going completely off the board. And if you read my story today, I'm doing it in a little bit of a different way. My biggest winner is the Montreal Canadiens. And you might sit here and say, Frank, they didn't make a single trade. What are you talking about? How could they possibly be a winner? The point here is Kent Hughes absolutely nailed it. He said, I expect us to be in this spot next year, the year after that. They're not going to be trading picks and prospects away to get bottom of the lineup help, to do these old, I'm going to make a trade for the sake of making a trade. I know a lot of GMs, that's their cliche line. Like, I'm not going to do it just to do it. They end up doing it every year. Every time they do it, they trade nothing for nothing or something for nothing. And it doesn't make any sense to me. The Canadiens were in it till the very end, quite literally thwarted at the deadline, in the minutes around it, from getting a deal done. Don't know exactly what it is. I have some guesses, but I'm not going to be making those publicly. And they laid the groundwork for next year and beyond as their window is just opening to win. And we know the Canadiens are a firm playoff team this year, and they're going to be an interesting first-round opponent for anyone. But as you look at their season and how it's unfolded, pretty impressive. Don't limit the latter stages of your window being open because you got a little horny and wanted to do something now. Hold on to your pieces until it makes sense. Go big or go home. Do something big or don't do anything at all. And that's what they almost did. I'm not giving them points for almost doing something, but it's the prudence is the better part of valor sometimes that sticks out when it comes to the deadline. You have to be patient.
Hey, man, a lot of back in the day, most GMs were former players, right? They got that job. Emotional, hyper-competitive type of dudes. Now, a lot of GMs aren't. They come from different backgrounds. They're more measured, whether they're agents or just low-level scouts who work whatever it is. I think it's more a personality trait than education, but certainly critical thinking matters. Like you said, being patient, looking at the big picture. And I think that's why. And so that's why we have smarter GMs all across sports. Like it's almost like I talk about coaching, like in college hockey or really now the NHL. There's not enough teams for all the competent coaches that are now available. All these years of hockey and education and development and player development. There are so many people now qualified, but so few jobs. And now I'm sure there's managers also. There's a lot of really qualified GMs who are just begging for a shot. And it's hard to get them because there's not many jobs. We're not adding teams every year. It's we're not adding jobs because unless you add teams, there's the broadcasting jobs, GM jobs, coaching jobs. Unless we add teams, the same amount stays the same. There's only more people. The population is only going up, and the more qualified population is only going up. So, yeah, I just think better GMing, and so that kind of move by Montreal in the long run will probably pay dividends. For me, it's Buffalo.
Who's your biggest winner? Yeah.
My biggest winner is Buffalo. I think they identified that we're now, and we talked about this on Frankly Hockey earlier in the year. I said San Jose's window is now open. Utah's window is now open. These teams' windows are, Chicago, their window is not open yet. They're getting there. They've Bedard is now the dude, but they need more dudes. Buffalo realized we have something here. The age of our players. Dahlin, Thompson's an Olympian. Dahlin's a superstar. Tuck was almost an Olympian. It's time to go. So let's get a little bigger because suddenly, wow, we have a heavy team. I don't know if that was the plan, but right now they're a big, heavy, physical team. And even guys like Krebs plays physical. I like what Jack Quinn did in the game yesterday against Tampa, throwing his weight around a little bit. And so to add, Luke Shen as a thick 7-8 guy, he's a 6-7 defenseman, but Logan Stanley might be what they need in a playoff series against Tampa Bay. Because that's what Tampa Bay was sending a message yesterday, Frank, is this is playoff hockey. They did Buffalo a favor saying, can you do that every night in the postseason? Because that's what it's going to take. And Sam Carrick, I've been begging for Buffalo to get a face-off guy for 5 years. He was 7 of 9, Frank, on the dot. They had him on the dot late in the game, protecting a 1-goal lead. He had a big goal. When it was 6-4, it looked like Tampa Bay was going to turn. He came down to wicked wrist shot, 2-on-1. He fights. I just think they identified what we are right now in terms of a tough, heavy team, and all they did was add more to it. And they didn't really give up very much at all.
Okay, so let me give you some pushback here. I love the Sabres and the way that they've played, and they've been one of the best teams. They've been one of the best teams in the NHL since December.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think their chances to win a playoff round improved materially by the players that they added. Like, had they gone out and said, all right, we're giving up Radim Murka and a first for Colton Parayko, okay, that's a material impact, and you have him for the next 4 years. Totally get it. That was plan A.
Yep.
I'd love to know what plan B and plan C were, because it feels like they ended up with plan D. Is that wrong to say? They're all depth players, and not taking away anything from them, but I don't know that any one of these guys individually moves the needle. And you gave up a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th. Isaac Rosine, who was a first-round pick in 2021 and obviously hasn't panned out. But if you're the Jets, you're going, okay, yeah, that's the guy we'll take and take a flyer on. And Jacob Bryson, like, how much of a upgrade is Logan Stanley on the left side over Bryson?
He's twice as big. I mean, he's a big upgrade.
Small percentage, like in terms of overall impact. So,
it's not
that I didn't like their deadline. I just felt like they did stuff to do stuff.
Stanley has played an angry game this year. He's got a little bit of offense. That's probably an aberration year, but I still think he's a guy deep in the lineup, because look at yesterday. They played 4 defensemen that last period, Frank. They didn't trust 5 and 6. They didn't play at all in the third period. Stanley's a guy, has playoff experience. We've seen the last couple of years for Winnipeg. I do think he can help them down there and be a factor. And if there's an injury to Power or something, because that game was a little tougher on Power. He was -5 at one point. Like, that you got to play a little nasty in that game, and that's not Power's game. An amazing skater, helps breakouts, and hopefully he'll learn from that and keep getting better. But I think, and like I said, it's more about Carrick than it is the defenseman. I just think he's really exactly what they needed from a face-off, fourth line, another heavy guy, character guy. They're building character around the Thompson, Tuck, Dahlin core. And now, can they get saves? The goalie save percentage wasn't good. Hopefully Alex Line is healthy. He's been their best goalie they've had. I'm sure they hope he's there game 1, Stanley Cup playoffs, get him ready to go. But I do like what Buffalo did. They're building momentum, another win streak, and here they are, a chance to get there. They're in the playoffs. We know that. Now a chance to win around and continue this momentum. All right. Biggest winner, biggest loser. I'm going, again, loser is a harsh word here. Obviously, you can only do what you can do. The deals are only there what you can make. And for me, it was just Carolina. I just still think this was their year maybe to get to the final. They're going with Stankoven in the middle. I just don't know if it works. Obviously, they don't have a fighter on the team. Delorier, it gives them a little bit down the stretch. I don't see him playing in the playoffs unless Carrier gets hurt and they want to keep a heavy fourth line. Robinson, it just gives them a little bit depth there. And if people want to play a gong show game late in the year here, they got him. They can suit him up. It'll be entertaining for the fans. But just not getting that center, Frank. I'm concerned for them down the middle.
Yeah, I get it. And I think you hit it on the head when you said you can only make deals that you can make. And if the marketplace, so they were interested in Vincent Trocheck, for instance, but they felt like the price never got to a point where it made any sense for them. And outside of Trocheck, I don't know that and this was a thing that popped up with a number of different teams. I don't know that there were any of the real big chips that actually existed on the market that really got these teams excited. Clearly, Carolina is willing to pay the price at some point. They got Mikko Rantanen, for instance, and it didn't work, but they weren't able to make it happen. So my biggest loser is the Washington Capitals. And I know, again, that sounds harsh. And I know that Father Time is undefeated. And I know that in the end, you have to have a changing of the guard in Washington. At some point, Alex Ovechkin will say goodbye. At some point, you will have to say goodbye to John Carlson, particularly with Cole Hudson on his way in. But I feel like they ripped out the heart of their team, of their franchise. And I don't know about you, but John Carlson, I don't care what his contract says. I'm not trading a franchise icon in the dead of the night while he's sleeping and have him find out when he wakes up. That didn't sit right with me. It probably didn't sit right with a lot of Washington Capitals players. And Nick Dowd is just another huge piece in that room, which, by the way, they traded Nick Dowd 1 year too late. Last year at this time with the deadline, they had first round pick plus on the table for Nick Dowd. They ended up getting second and a third, which is fine, but it wasn't the first that they could have had last year. And I know they were in a different spot last year, first seed in the East. They're not trying to let that guy go, but I mean, so you re-sign him and then you trade him now? I don't really understand why that makes a lot of sense. And those are hard trades to make. And I know that they've got interesting stuff coming back, and John Carlson gets you that conditional first. I don't know about you. I just need a lot more than that to rip the guts of my team out when you're closing in. You're still kind of within striking distance of a playoff spot. I don't think they're going to make it, but I just a culture thing and a franchise icon thing. It didn't feel very good watching it from afar, particularly the manner in which it went down.
Yeah, and the excuse of they were afraid it would get out. Who cares if it gets out? Just call them. Hey, John, we're close. We're going to make this move.
They made the trade in the afternoon, just so you know. That's when they actually agreed to it. And then they didn't. Pat Verbeek is like a vault. That's not getting out from his end. And I'm sure he asked the Caps to keep it quiet on their end, which is fine. But like, man, oh man, I'm not doing a franchise icon that way.
Exactly. Like I said, his number is going to get retired. He's a Stanley Cup champion. I get it. It's a pretty good return. And you are trying to maybe create more air in the room for a young coach, young prospects, give them a chance to lead. And so I do think I don't know if they've talked to Ovechkin at all or he's talked with them. Sounds like that discussion hasn't been had, but I think this is a bit of a signal to him too. Like, we kind of want to move on here. Like, you and John have a lot of, and I think they both do it in a great way. Like, we've seen other teams get rid of guys because they take too much air in almost like a little bit of a selfish way. These guys are great in the room. They're great in the tunnel. Everyone loves Ovi and Carlson. Great personalities, but again, not heavy-handed or egotistical. But I just think, Frank, they're looking to kind of, let's make this move now. We don't want to wait too late. Cole Hudson is coming from Boston University. He's going to run the power play. We hope he looks like Lane. We don't want that situation where, well, John's here really to run the power play, and he does it so well, but we want this young guy to start the process of picking up that mantle. And I think it's kind of that. I don't think it's really mean-spirited on either side, but it's like, This is time.
Well, but that's fine. But like, I'm giving the player control. And let me give you the inverse of this, which was the Nashville Predators went to Ryan O'Reilly, who has like literally accomplished nothing there. He hasn't done anything for the Nashville Predators. His contract didn't have a no trade clause, and they verbally gave him the gentleman's handshake agreement. We're not trading you anywhere you don't want to go. Why wouldn't the Caps do the same thing for John Carlson, who technically in his contract didn't have it? He had a certain number of teams that were on his no list, and the Anaheim Ducks weren't on the no list, so they were able to just make the trade freely. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I just think after 17 years and the Stanley Cup and holding every record as a franchise defenseman, I'm sorry, like that guy gets every benefit of the doubt and a couple extra ones on Sunday, and I'm not trading him while he's sleeping. I'm just not doing it.
It's business, not personal, but you're right. How does Colton Parayko have a no-move clause and John Carlson doesn't?
Give him one verbally. Like you have the ability to do it. You just do.
All right, deadline deal with the most foresight. As Craig Button's going to join us in a second, and we'll throw him in this conversation as well, as we have a couple more left. What about you, Frank? Deal with the most foresight. What do you mean by that?
Well, just deal looking forward, not necessarily right in the here and now.
Gotcha.
And so for me, that was the Philadelphia Flyers getting David Jiricek in exchange for Bobby Brink. On one hand, they traded from their glut of wingers that they have, and we can't come on here and knock the Flyers build and say they don't have a center, they don't have a defenseman, they don't have a goalie, and then they go out and get a defenseman who still at 22 years of age has number one defenseman potential. And I'm not saying that he's going to get there. I'm just saying you have to take the swing in order to make it happen and give yourself the opportunity to get a number one defenseman. So few guys have that pedigree and that ability. And the truth is, David Jiricek was never going to get that opportunity in Minnesota with Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber there. And so premium position, right shot defenseman, 6'4" with size. The skating has been the big question for Jiricek, but has the shot, has the vision. I think for the Flyers, it's a worthy gamble for, I'm a big Bobby Brink fan, but they send him to Minnesota where he's a good fit there. His speed can work out. They've got a bigger, heavier, rugged lineup. His size won't be an issue there. I like the deal for both sides, but from the Flyers end, there's only so many guys in the league that have that potential. Again, keyword, scouting, potential, ceiling, all of that matters. It's a big question mark, but I think a gamble worth making. What about you?
All right, well, let's bring in Craig Button as we continue to play our little reindeer games here, talking about post-trade deadline. And Craig, we had the biggest winner at the deadline. I took Buffalo, fortifying some heaviness. Frank took Montreal. Biggest loser at the deadline, I took Carolina. Again, loser was kind of harsh, but because they didn't quite get that center I thought they kind of needed. This was their chance maybe to get to the final. Frank took the Capitals and how they kind of handled everything with John Carlson. And right now we're the deal with the most foresight. You just heard Frank talk about Jiricek for Brink. I like Conor Garland in Columbus. I felt they needed that kind of rambunctious Cam Atkinson type of winger. I think the fans identify with it. I think they needed him. And he, to me, he's already unlocked Kent Johnson like in one game. I've loved those two together. So that's kind of my deal with the most foresight. So whether it's winner, loser, or a deal with the foresight, take it anywhere you want as we welcome you in here on this beautiful Monday.
Yeah, I think every team has to look at it from the lens of their own reality. So, I mean, foresight for one team might be different for another team. But every team, and I can guarantee you this, every single team has the goal of winning the Stanley Cup. And there's no question in my mind that the Colorado Avalanche position them best for now and for the future. Like, if it's about winning the Stanley Cup, who did better? Like, I know other teams are in different stages of building and trying to get to that level. I get it. But they've done it, been there, won that, trying to win it again, and they're well positioned to continue to do it. Sorry, I don't see any team that had better foresight if your goal is winning the Stanley Cup. Unless teams want to come out and go, well, our goal really isn't winning the Stanley Cup.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm really glad that you brought up the Avs because I've kind of teased this a little bit with Butchie, but I want to go back and unpack things with the Avs because they had the opportunity to keep Nazem Kadri and they didn't. And they went on this path where they were chasing this number 2 center forever. And now they ended up with Brock Nelson, who's perfectly suited there, and Kadri at 3. But then, like, if you even want to unpack their deadline a little bit further, did they really then need to trade? If they were getting Kadri in the end, would they have still traded the 1 and 5 for Nicolas Waugh? Like, I feel like there's, at hindsight, we have the benefit of looking back and saying, did they really need to do all these things when they could have just kept Kadri to begin with? The end result is an incredibly stacked forward group. But do you see my point at all in terms of, like, look at all the guys that you ran through and assets in the meantime when, like, you could have just signed Kadri years ago?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, hindsight. Listen, I bought Apple stock when everybody told me not to buy Apple stock. And then I sold Apple stock like a complete idiot. I can't recover. I'm smart and I can't recover from my idiocy. Okay. So if we're going to go all the way back to 2022, I'm talking about right now, Frank. Bottom line is that the Colorado Avalanche have positioned themselves, I think, brilliantly for now and for the future. I can't do anything about the past, and I'm not gonna live there. And I don't think I know Chris McFarland doesn't live there. He tries things and then he acknowledges where he made mistakes and he moves forward. And I love that about Chris McFarland and the Colorado Avalanche. But to me, there is nothing negative that I can see with the Colorado Avalanche. If we want to do a history and say, oh, well, maybe if they would have done this, they could have won more in the past. Okay, we can have that conversation. We're talking about the trade deadline right now.
Well, let's talk about bang. Let's talk about bang for the buck. That's the next category we have here, Frank and Craig. And mine was, again, and it was part of my big winner as well, Craig, for the deadline for me, was what Buffalo did getting Sam Carrick. I've been begging for them to get a face-off guy late in the game, and he was their guy yesterday, 7 for 9. He can fight a little bit. He had a beautiful goal as well. Again, just a spot guy. He's a fourth-line guy, but I think they're identifying themselves as kind of a heavy team. They're like, they kind of, not again, like I said earlier, I don't know if that was the plan, but they are a rambunctious group who can play kind of playoff style. They showed it last night. Tampa might have done them a favor, and Carrick just kind of fits what I think they needed right now from that. It augments what they had, and it kind of fills that kind of character, veteran, face-off guy at the bottom, which I think makes them feel like a little more complete, right? They're still a young team with no playoff experience, a lot of the guys, so they're looking to feel as complete as possible when they enter the postseason.
Yeah, and I think, like, you try to round out your team. You can win on the margins, and you add players in different areas that, to use your word, complete. Kelly McCrimmon talked about adding Cole Smith and Nick Dowd. He said, like, we're trying to be harder to play against. You recognize what you're capable of doing. You recognize what might be really difficult to do. And then you say, okay, what gives us a little more strength in a different area? I love the move by Tampa Bay getting Corey Perry. We talk about personality, right? So Sam Carrick has personality.
Right.
Dowd,
Good word.
Corey Perry, they have personality. They add something to your team that, that everybody wants. And I think that Sam Carrick, to your description, just adds another element. And it takes a little bit of the pressure and the burden off of other players. And I think that, we saw what happened in Buffalo yesterday. I mean, my only disappointment is that Wes McCauley wasn't a referee there to be able to do 5 minutes for fighting, 5 minutes for fighting.
Good call.
That would have been electric. My best bang for the buck was Mackenzie Weegar going from Calgary to Utah. I just love that Utah adds a 50-point defenseman, right shot, who's still in the prime of his career for 5 years at a reasonable cap hit. And they don't have to dip into any of their top prospects or top draft picks. 3 second-round picks. They dump Oli Mata in the process. Jonathan Castagna, we'll see what he ends up becoming as the leading scorer at Cornell. But they're barely touching their prospect pool or pipeline, and they get 5 full years of Mackenzie Weegar after this playoff run. I mean, what's better than that?
Yeah, no, I think it was an impressive bit of work. When I heard that Mackenzie Weegar had been traded, I immediately thought of Dmitry Simashov as going the other way, and really big, great skating defenseman, having a really strong year in the American Hockey League. Started the year in Utah. I thought, okay, it would seem to me to make sense. I mean, TJ Ginla, and I'll say it right now, he's the best player outside the NHL right now. And like they were not getting TJ Ginla for Mackenzie Weegar. Like that was one of those ones where Bill Armstrong goes, yeah, thanks, call again if you want to be serious. And but I thought Simashev might be the guy going back the other way. But hey, there's no question that when and people look at Mackenzie Weegar's season this year, Mackenzie Weegar, like the Calgary Flames, had some challenges. But just because a player numbers might not look good doesn't mean he's not a good player. And I think Mackenzie Weegar, to your point, Frank, is a great addition for the Utah Mammoth.
Heaviest cost at the deadline. This is our last trade deadline aftermath category. Again, this is a tough one. Everyone has their own price, their own costs. And I just looked at, Las Vegas seems to be searching to try to figure out how we can get some consistency. They're hyper competitive in the front office from ownership on down. Obviously, they don't stop every day. They're like the Wall Street day trader. Every day they wake up. How can we get better? How can I make money? And they just don't stop. And Nick Dowd, was second and a third. San Jose's third in 2029. That they might be good by then. So we'll see. But I just thought that was a little costly for them, for a guy obviously close to the end. But again, I get it. They're trying to find some traction in Las Vegas somehow as they keep scratching and clawing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know what? I'm going to do more of a deep dive on this, but I think no, but not on that. But like in terms of what Frank said, what teams run themselves into. And I think, the cap's going to go up significantly here, so it might not impact it the same way. But teams giving goaltenders long-term contracts based on very short-term positive results, I think is burning them. I think the Vegas Golden Knights are a great example. I don't care that Aiden Hill won a Stanley Cup. It was short-term. The biggest problem for the Vegas Golden Knights, in my view, this year is their goaltending has been garbage. And they've been a good defensive team. Yeah, they've had some injuries, right? And I look at that Pacific Division, and I look at the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights who played on Sunday night, and I'm going, one of these teams has a really good chance to get to the conference final. And in other years, you'd go, not a chance. But because the Pacific Division is so weak, and I think that when we talk about the cost, so this is why I'm coming back to, the cost of what the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights have done in the past, Frank, back to the past, is costing them in the present, but it may not. It's like it's confounding.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, too, because there's a goalie in that trade, Jesper Vikman going to Washington. And last time Vegas and Washington made a goalie trade, it worked out pretty well for the Caps. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Best bang or heaviest cost, I should say. I'm going to go back to Colorado. Again, hindsight is 2020, but I don't need to trade for Nick Waugh if I'm trading for Nazem Kadri. And I know that you don't get to unring the bell, but too many centers now. Too many, and not that that's a bad thing or bad problem to have, but a first and a fifth is not inexpensive. For Nick Waugh, that was by far the best move that the Leafs made over this trade deadline. Waugh was the guy that came over in the Mitch Marner rights deal. They end up turning that into a first, which is impressive. But I'm looking at Colorado's lineup, and as strong as it is, you could have done something else with maybe some of the other players that you have at the very bottom that made it all work. Like Parker Kelly's a really good player. That's an impactful, important piece for them. What happens to those guys now that they're like Jack Drury, now that they're way further down the lineup? Can they be as productive as they once were?
Yeah, I think that, Landeskog is out now. Kadri played left wing on Sunday on that line with McKinnon. And the guys that are going to be left out are going to be Jack Drury, Ross Colton. Those are the guys that seem to be the odd players out. And certainly, you can look at that. And I guess we're going to see here, how Colorado plays through this and everything, and see what the end result is. I'm going to ask you guys this, and I'm not going to say they've paid a high price yet, but the approach that the St. Louis Blues took, is that going to end up being a situation in St. Louis where we're looking at, it feels like there's tremors, like underneath the St. Louis Blues earth. And so I'm asking, is that going to be a high price could it be a high price that they end up paying?
I will raise my hand on that one because I wrote it today on hockey247.com. I don't think anyone damaged their reputation more than Doug Armstrong did over the last week. The leak with Colton Parayko and the pressure that was put on him publicly, then going back to your captain and Braden Schenn for the second trade deadline in a row and asking him to waive his no trade clause so that you make sure that he gets the message that his services are no longer wanted in St. Louis. He ends up saying, "Uncle, finally, I get the message. I'm out." But, he handed out the no trade clauses to begin with. Didn't like the roster that he built, which is his own fault. And then on the way out is unhappy with the way everyone handles everything. I don't get it. And it comes back to Doug Armstrong specifically with roster construction and the contracts that there's no one else to blame but yourself. So I think he did some significant damage over the last week.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see as Alex Steen takes over the team, what he's going to do to try to mitigate against that, and and maybe the fact that Alex is coming in can mitigate it, and that's why I say this could be a high price. I mean, the present doesn't look good to your point, but we'll see what happens because the last thing you want with a franchise is players starting to say, "I don't want to be here anymore." That ends up being problematic.
Right. And it should be noted, just in the interest of balance and fairness, that Doug Armstrong, in the end, actually did pretty well getting 2 firsts and 2 thirds back for Braden Schenn and Justin Falk. So in the end, I guess half of the goals accomplished that he wanted to could have been a lot better if Colton Parayko also moved on. But I want to ask you, Craig, is there a team out there that either made a small move or something that caught your eye as a stealthy sort of, hey, that team actually had a better deadline than they might get credit for? I'll give you my example. My team is the Winnipeg Jets. I think for a team that suddenly is closer than objects appear in your mirror in the standings, they're like this pillow fight in the West that no one wants the final playoff spot. They're here. And not only that, but you traded off 2 pending UFAs in Stanley and Schenn. You got back a second-round pick and Isaac Rosén, who I don't know if he's going to end up being something, but that's the type of player with high-end skill that I want to take a flyer on. And how much worse, and I made this point earlier, how much worse is Jacob Bryson than Logan Stanley? Different players, but left-side defensemen. Like, I don't know that the Jets, they didn't hurt themselves at all, and they're still right in this race where patience is kind of like GMs would have lost their minds being in this spot, selling off pieces left and right. And Kevin Cheveldayoff doesn't flinch.
No, yeah, he doesn't. He's got a real sense of calm. What's fascinating to me is that Winnipeg Jets question, and then I'll give you my who I think are 2 teams that I think did really well that we don't talk about. Nobody saw what's happened in Winnipeg this year, like kind of a real fall off from last year. And if this team makes the playoffs on a late run, nobody saw that either. I mean, it's really kind of unbelievable to think that the Winnipeg Jets at this juncture in time, could be they're in the hunt. I can't believe I'm saying that, to be honest with you, but here they are. So to your point, Frank, I think there's agreement there. 2 teams that I thought, and John, you mentioned it earlier. I love the Conor Garland addition by Columbus. Rick Bowness has gone in there, done a good, and now they get a little more. They get a little more fight. I mean, Connor's that guy. He's in the battle. He's in the grind, and I think that'll really help the Columbus Blue Jackets, not just today, but going forward. I love that. I also continue, and John Carlson aside, I don't want to get into the John Carlson, but I do admire what the Washington Capitals do. They have a really solid pipeline. They have really good prospects. Who knows? Maybe they find their way in the playoffs. Maybe they don't. But it just feels to me like they're going to be a team. I don't see them in the mushy middle. I don't, because the goaltending's good. some things haven't gone as well as they'd like this year. And I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois come back, but injuries. But I like Ilya Protas. I mean, he's going to be in the lineup next year. Just an outstanding player. And so I like what they did. John Carlson aside, I don't really know the background on all of that. But I mean, when I say the background, it feels odd that John Carlson would be sent out. But good for Pat Verbeek. But I like what Columbus did for sure with Garland. And Washington just keeps moving along here, acquiring picks, making good selections, keeping that prospect pipeline pretty good.
Winnipeg 4-10 in overtime. If they're 10-4, they're in the playoffs. It's so random. 3-on-3 and shootout stuff that has nothing to do with the playoffs determines playoff positioning. It's just the way it is, and it's a long regular season, and you have other games to win. It's in the end, it's your own fault per se, but that's how close it is. They've won 3 in a row, but they still have to jump over 4 teams if they're going to get this done. All right, Craig, we'll let you go. We kept you overtime, but that was a great discussion. Fluid. Thanks for playing our little reindeer game with us. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week, Craig.
Have you ever eaten reindeer?
Yes, venison, but not reindeer. Is it the same thing?
No, it's but
Okay.
but I've had reindeer right in Finland, and it is really, really good, special.
All right. Well, what are reindeer? And
And
I would say to you, if you have a chance to get boar as an appetizer, the wild boar that run around down here in Florida, delicious as well. You've probably had that, right, Craig?
I have had wild boar, and I've had a lot of the game meats. If you're ever in Helsinki, Koo Restaurant is got the best reindeer I've ever had. It's right in. And if you need a reservation, phone me. I can get you one there. And that's the only place I can get you one, other than my kitchen in my house.
I just hope it's not Rudolph. That's all. Okay, that'd make me feel bad. All right, that's Craig Budd.
Okay, see ya.
You next week, Craig.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Good discussion as always with Craig. He jumped right in our little games, and I liked it. That was fun. All right, time to ask the insider. That's Frank Saravalli. Even sleep deprived, he still brings it. Was this a miss on Macklin? Macklin Celebrini and the Sharks. Here comes Matthew Barzell.
Yeah, this was Saturday. I think it is. And I realize that there's the attempt here is to go shoulder to shoulder, but it's a miss. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but it's full-blown interference at that. So this to me is a play that should be a suspension. I mean, it's a full-blown headshot. I don't know why we're drawing the line on, it seemed like he might have got his shoulder first. Like, what's the first thing Macklin Celebrini grabs is his head. This is a full-blown miss. This is a shoulder to the head, and this should have been a suspension, in my view. And it's, again, not even, doesn't touch the puck, isn't near it. It's interference.
Yeah, he sees the puck. He's trying to box him out a bit. His eyes are right on the puck. I know he knows he's there. Celebrini, the last minute, kind of lunges forward with his head. I think that's why it hit. So I am exonerating Barzell in this situation. Like you said, though, the college game, it doesn't matter. You are responsible. You hit a guy in the head with your shoulder, it's a penalty. It doesn't matter. You have to take that extra precaution. But in the NHL world, I just think it's play on, and he just kind of was trying to box him out and get to that puck. And I'm okay when the puck is there for two guys, like when they go to a corner, a defenseman, a forward. You can have a little contact before you get to the puck there. And I love Macklin.
He's 2 strides away from the puck still. I'm sorry, this is interference.
It's important play, though. Important play. And his teammate is passing. He's dropping him the puck. He's going to hide him in there. He's going to loop around him. He sees him do that. So, okay, he's making a pass to me, even though it is, I hope Macklin's fine.
I don't like it a little bit.
Okay. All right. #hockey. I love this. Every step of the way, Jack Hughes keeps hitting home runs. His post-game interview was still legendary, how he emptied the tank in his brain. It didn't matter what questions you asked him. He had something to say, and he said it beautifully without any interruptions or ums or anything. And now he meets the person who took that iconic picture, Frank.
Yeah, really cool to see that he had a chance to meet Elsa Garrison, who took that legendary shot. And so often, you see a photographer, you see a famous photo, and the person who took the photo kind of gets lost in history, right? And we still talk about the most famous hockey photo of all time, Bobby Orr flying through the air, and that story has been told many times. But in this one,
Yep.
I'm glad that we don't lose the perspective of the person making the art. Like, it's one thing for the player to be there in that moment and draped in the flag with the blood coming down off of his tooth and gum, but to get a chance to have Elsa Garrison make her way to New Jersey and, to this legendary shot, to see it celebrated by the athlete himself. I just thought the Devils did such a nice job and wanted to give them some credit that they are providing credit for the woman behind it all.
Yeah, really cool. I like that Orr comparison you made, and it kind of just popped in my head now that what made both of those pictures are, I think, the youth too, right? Bobby Orr was a young man when he went flying through the air. He's like 22 years old. Jack Hughes is a young man. He's 24 years old there, and he accomplished this amazing feat young in his life. And where will it take him from here? What will it tells so many stories. That's the power of the photograph, of the still picture. We interpret so many things as opposed to video or other things. Sometimes they're more powerful. And you're right. Most of these photographers are anonymity, and they don't do it to get famous, and they just love the craft. They love a great picture and how it turns out. But occasionally, the Muhammad Ali over Sonny Liston picture, the Bobby Orr through the air, right? The Boston Globe photographer happened to pick that corner. Thankfully, if he picked the other corner, he would not have gotten that shot. Like, a lot of it's luck, right place, right time. Be ready, take a bunch of pictures, hope one comes out. And it's wonderful. It's why so many people take up photography, in as a hobby, and some people go nuts over it. And it's a great way to obviously capture so many beautiful moments in this life. And that was an awesome moment, and great to see Jack with that warm arm around her shoulder, and her beaming as well to meet her subject like that. Really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. All right, we got to speculate to accumulate in life sometimes, people. And Frank's plus 13.5 units this season. Let's have a strong kick to the finish, Frank. We got 20, in some cases, less than 20 games left. So we need to focus. I know you're tired. You've been through a lot the last couple of weeks, but let's grind right to the finish. What do we have tonight? Have you thought it through?
I have, and we're going to see some weird plays between now and the end of the season, because you're seeing games that mean a lot for some teams and mean next to nothing for others, and there's some games where it doesn't mean a lot for either team. So I think you get to a dicey territory here over these last 6 weeks or so of the NHL regular season. But tonight, I'm going a little bit of a surprise. I'm going Calgary Flames on the money line in Washington. So after the trade deadline, the Flames made their moves. They sent out Nazem Kadri. They, most of their leadership core, Mackenzie, Weegar, out the door. In Ryan Strome, they end up picking up a big win on the weekend. They're a relatively juicy underdog tonight in Washington. But we talked a lot earlier in the show about how I felt like the Caps had their guts ripped out of their team. And Alex Ovechkin called it the saddest day of his career, and Tom Wilson was damn near crying. I don't know that the Caps have quite recovered yet. The Flames have so many young guys. Joel Farabee steps up. He's wearing a letter for the Calgary Flames. They're making different decisions as they go along, sort of on the fly here. And so they're a younger team. They can adjust quickly. They're just here to play and have fun. They've got nothing riding on this because they're well out of the playoffs. I don't know that the Caps are going to recover that quickly, and that's why I like the Flames tonight. So just a little insight. It's not reinventing the wheel here, but I thought the spread was juicy enough to make me want to take a dive on the Flames and see what happens.
Yeah, the Caps had a post-trade deadline game against the Bruins, lost 3-1 on Saturday. So, maybe they're over it, or like you said, maybe they will continue to feel kind of down about what is the future of this team, what's Ovi's future, what's my role going forward. A light schedule today, only 5 games.
What do these trades say about what the team thinks of our season? Meaning they think it's over if they're trading away John Carlson. Maybe it is over. Maybe we are out of it. I don't know. I just thought, given all those things, Washington shouldn't be that big of a favorite.
Only 5 games today and a 4:00 game in Columbus. We're trying to figure out why, but there's a 4:00 game in Columbus. It's a makeup game, this is the game that was canceled January 26th. So maybe for whatever reason, maybe travel purposes, get LA there the night before, get them out tonight. Maybe LA's going back home and then they have another game, or maybe even Columbus.
Oh,
so they
that's
kind of
why.
wedged it. Yeah, they wedged this game in, Frank.
The Kings are playing in Boston on Tuesday at 7. So it actually becomes a bit of a scheduling thing. You can't play more than or less than 21 hours before your next game. So I think they're just trying to give the Kings the benefit on travel here.
Yeah, give them a little. It's a short flight from Columbus to Boston. It's not a big deal. Had they played at 7, they would have got there by midnight. But yeah, just throw them a solid, both teams, and kind of cool for people in Columbus. They can leave work early or go check out a game. But yeah, Kings Blue Jackets, obviously huge one. The Kings still have a chance for a miracle finish. They can go on these. We talk about the Western Conference. If someone just wins 7 in a row here, they might make a big move. In Columbus, again, they need 2 here. But again, Columbus, 12-8, Frank, gets them to 97 points. If 97 is, for a while it was 96 was the number, 98, but 12-8. Again, it doesn't sound like a lot. It's still not easy to go, 6-4, 6-4. It's not easy, but 12-8, it's doable, and it starts tonight against the Kings. Also, Rangers in Philly. Talk about Flames in Capitals, right? Frank is riding Calgary. Utah, you can watch Mackenzie Weegar play. He played against Columbus the other night in that real exciting game in Columbus. That was a good one. They're in Chicago against Connor Bedard, who has a new career high in goals now. And then the Senators are in Vancouver. Watch out for the Sens. They're cooking a bit, and they might be the team that takes over Boston there as the Bruins have become so home dependent. Tough to win in the road. But Ottawa, they're coming, Frank. I don't know. If you had to pick right now, Boston or Ottawa, for
neither.
That last wild card.
I'm going Columbus.
You're even going to go Columbus, okay? As you can see right there, same amount of games as Ottawa, and the Bruins have played one more game. So yeah, Columbus or Ottawa, win their next game to kind of get pulled even in games played. That would give Columbus 75 to Boston 76, and it would give Ottawa 73 to Boston 76. So yeah, Ottawa's got to really kick a little harder than that. All right, to the last word on this, Frankly Hockey, managing lineups during deadline week. Frank, what do you mean?
Well, it's an interesting time. So I'll give you a couple things to think about. One, we saw a number of players that were held out of lineups during deadline week for trade asset protection reasons, essentially making them healthy scratches. And I understand the nature of the business. If you're going to trade a guy, you got to make sure that he's healthy in order to do it. And you could always do it under the guise of, well, we healthy scratch guys all the time. But I don't necessarily love the idea of teams sitting out guys on a fishing expedition of trying to generate interest or making it seem as if you're closer to a deal than you really are. Case in point would be Vincent Trocheck being held out of the New York Rangers lineup. He ends up not moving. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, same thing with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know that they ever really got close on an Ekman-Larsson deal. And I understand the premise of it, but I don't really like then the notion of having to bring that guy back into the locker room after the fact and say, hey, we almost traded you, but you're here. Good luck. Put on your jersey again and go out there and do it. So that's one end of it. The other end is the absolute scramble that these teams have to manage on deadline day itself. Why were there 5 games on the slate on Friday? First off, it's a Friday. They're generally relatively dark, and I understand the complications of the schedule this year. It's an Olympic year. It's condensed. You're trying to make everything work. But can we finally get to a point where deadline day itself, there are no games? Like, that's the league activity for the day, is the trade deadline. And everyone, it's the most eyeballs that you have league-wide all season long, believe it or not. Make it the holiday. Allow players that get traded, particularly early in the day, they can pack up, say goodbye to their family, and get on to the next place for Saturday's game. I just think it's undue stress on coaches trying to put lineups together, teams trying to call up guys from the minors to make sure they have enough bodies, guys sitting out for asset protection, just too much going on. sit back, make it a holiday, allow everyone to enjoy it, and just take the stress down from a 14 to like an 8. Just my thought.
And you could make it a 10 o'clock at night deadline so we could be a prime time. More people will watch. Like you said, ratings, I think the networks, Sportsnet, ESPN would enjoy, like you said, get some ratings at a non-game event. It's what the NFL has invented is a 12-month calendar now. And so you move it at night, just give us an hour wrap up, or even 9 o'clock. You go 7 to 10. Certainly something to think about. And you're right. The whole sitting guys out on trade week, it's just for competitive balance, entertainment. People buy a ticket. They want a particular player to play. I know we're all big boys and girls, and I get it. And we can take it. Life goes on. We'll forget about this trade deadline week in a couple of weeks. But yeah, that part, I don't know how you avoid it, but that part does kind of stink a little bit. A little greasy. All right. Frankly, hockey's never greasy. Another solid. We gave you 5 extra minutes, people, free of charge. We're not going to charge you. 65 minutes overtime. We went overtime on this edition of Frankly Hockey, but we covered a lot of bases. And Craig Button, a great guest as always. And so, yes, enjoy the hockey today. Enjoy the hockey tonight. And that's it. Any final words? Another nap today, Frank? You need one more nap, you think, or you're good? You're back to square one?
I'm going to try and grind through. If I sleep too much, I won't be able to sleep again tonight. I'm still off from the Milan thing. Got to work on that.
Wow.
Got to hydrate.
That's Frank, the Hockey Insider. I'm Bucci. We'll see you tomorrow, Monday through Friday. Frankly Hockey, right here.